This is Talking Hardcore, the podcast for people who love hardcore history.
You study history because it allows us to understand the present and prepare for the future.
Yeah, it's like Shakespeare or Greek tragedy.
Could you imagine what was in the Library of Alexandria?
I bet it was porn.
I'm not even wearing pants right now, Scott.
What's the old Clint Eastwood line? A man's got to know his limitations. I know my limitations.
The Talking Hardcore podcast is presented by Ace Industrial Solutions. Are you in need of skilled trade professionals for your next project? Look no further.
Thank you for joining us today for our special happy hour edition of Talking Hardcore. We're here to talk about Hardcore History, episode 20, which is History Under the Influence. So Scott will report his rum. I'm making my old fashioned right now. So first, before we started, we just wanted to say thank you to all of you who listen or watch. We looked up the numbers, and we're in the top 25% of all podcasts in the world, which doesn't mean we have a lot of listens. It means there's a shitload of podcasts that nobody listens to, but it's still pretty awesome. And we want to say thanks to everybody who listens. It's fun for us to do it, but if nobody listens, we'd probably stop. So it means a lot. And also, we're going to have shirts coming soon. As you can see, Scott's wearing a black. We're still dialing it in. Show them the back.
Yeah, all right, there you go.
You might need to come over, man.
No, they can see me.
Yep. So we've got some cool shirts coming up. These ones will be available soon. Just look for a link. But again, thanks for watching and listening, and I hope you join us and have a drink.
Yeah,
because this is my absolute favorite standalone hardcore history, except maybe Prophets of Doom.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Drink responsibly or irresponsibly if you're at home.
So my old-fashioned recipe
Nobody cares.
is a half ounce.
So bitters.
No, that's not bitters. That's simple syrup.
Well,
And then an ounce and a half of
is that Woodford?
Woodford, which is good for this. If you happen to have Buffalo Trace, that's even better. But Woodford is good. We have these crystal clear ice balls because I thought, let's be bougie. And then 2 dashes of bitters. Some people say 4, but these seem like big dashes. And we'll go through. And then we're going to stir it up a little bit.
Where's the sugar?
That was the simple syrup.
Where's the fruit?
I did not have any oranges. I forgot to buy them.
No fruit.
I don't know how much flavor you get out of that anyway. I think the bitters does most of the work in the Woodford.
So my booze, when I make my drink, it's ice and rum. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Cheers. Thanks for watching
Cheers.
Talking Hardcore, guys. We really appreciate it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So this is Talking Hardcore. We're doing a new episode today. We're trying something fun. We're doing a live drinking event. We're going to call a social right now. If you're having a drink, have a drink with us.
Jack, I hope you got some good whiskey.
Yeah. Man,
Oh man, I made that strong.
Sunflower,
that
I have
gin and
no idea
tonic.
what you drank.
she said she's not much of a heavy
Yeah.
drinker, but she said she would.
She's just
pop
here
in.
here for the giggles at the hilarity,
Well, you know, it's nice.
which
at
I'm sure
least-
will
At
ensue.
least this we know Sunflower's not listening at 1.5 speed.
Yeah.
It's not possible, so she has to listen to us on slow speed. Okay. So, History Under the Influence, episode 20, is the first Blitz edition of Hardcore History, and it is one of my all-time favorite standalone episodes. I love the series, and it's between this one and Prophets of Doom that, for a standalone episode, are my all-time favorites.
It's a good one.
I mean, the alternate histories that pop up when you start thinking about this episode. So if you haven't listened to Hardcore History, episode 20, Blitz edition, History Under the Influence, I'll give you a little bit of background, but it's only 40 minutes, which makes it one of the most approachable Dan Carlin podcasts.
First one.
I mean, the addendums are usually 3 hours now. So you could go check out this one for $3. You can download it, and it's 40 minutes long. But he goes through
JFK.
Well, he starts, the concept of this is, how much has alcohol and drugs affected our history without us ever even knowing or talking about it? And the idea is, how many political leaders were under the influence of narcotics, alcohol, opium, things like that, and how that affected human history. And he's left with the conclusion by the end is that it must have affected it a lot, which just not really much of a told story.
Well, I mean, look at Napoleon's losses at
Waterloo. Right, so we'll get to that. But what he starts with is, like Scott said, he goes through JFK,
Napoleon,
Alexander, Napoleon, Churchill, who drank
Stalin,
all day. Stalin he was Russian, right?
Georgian.
Yeah, but drank a lot.
Yeah,
that's the culture,
sure,
especially back then, right?
I guess.
Vodka for breakfast with your cereal.
They used to give the pilots 5 shots of vodka before going up.
Yeah, that was probably so that they would go up.
Yeah. I
mean, when you're fighting those crazy Germans, that's great, Sunflower. You are our designated driver. I like it. Okay, so what that means is if we start getting off the rails, you got to pull us back.
No.
Straight
If
up.
it gets too bad.
I don't think Sunflower would pull us back. I think she would sit back and watch us do stupid
Okay,
things.
that's fair.
I don't know you, Sunflower, but that's my idea.
But I'm already gonna need to make a second drink, so this is gonna get fun.
So you just have to get up and go.
So anyway, that's the crux of the issue. And this
I pegged it.
You
I
did.
pegged it.
Yeah, you did.
All right. So anyway,
Okay. The fun part about this episode is all the alternate histories it raises up, right? What if Alexander didn't drink himself to death? What if Napoleon wasn't on opium during the Battle of Waterloo?
Yeah.
What if Hitler wasn't a meth head? Like, that's the biggest one, right? Like, would they have won World War II? Maybe. Or maybe he didn't get real bad until near the end.
Probably.
Where they had already lost, for all intents and purposes, right? But when he's talking about JFK,
wake up.
Okay,
Sunflower.
we'll try to be loud.
All right.
All right, we'll try to be loud, Sunflower. Right. I won't let you fall asleep. Okay, so he talks about JFK.
Yeah,
and he talks about how this stuff only came out 10 years ago. This episode aired probably about 10, 15 years ago. 10, 12 years ago.
I think it was 2009.
Right, 2009, 2010, right? So 24 years ago, that's when the evidence started coming out about JFK's medical history and all the stuff he was taking, how terrible it was, his health was.
The steroids he was on.
And you know what I thought about first?
What?
When he said that, and I've listened to this episode before, obviously, but in 50 years, when we find out what Trump took and we find out what Biden's taking, won't that be fascinating?
Do you think they'll tell us?
Trump.
I mean, they told us for JFK.
Yeah, Trump. What's that? What's that? Like college speed? What do they call it?
Adderall.
The pills you take. Adderall. Trump is on Adderall and Biden is on the blood of children.
Right. See, I think Trump.
I think Trump is fueled by KFC, McDonald's, and Diet Coke.
Well, and amphetamines. Yeah. I think he's on an amphetamine, but it's a lot smaller dose than what Hitler was taking. Sure. Right? So there's all those rumors about the diet pills. Well, what those are low dose amphetamines. So they kill your appetite. The one that they were talking about. It's an appetite suppressant. A low dose amphetamine is an appetite suppressant. And it gives you a little bit more energy, but it's not at that low of a dose. There's no amphetamine high.
Gotcha.
Right? So that'd be interesting to know. But I mean, when they get Biden all hopped up for the State of Union address and he comes out all roaring on fire, like, that's got to be some crazy shit. Oh, like, that's got to be steroids and Adderall.
Testosterone.
Like Matt said, the blood of babies. Like, and that's funny because we joke about that, but I'm sure there's some stem cell stuff going on too. You know,
you got to keep them healthy.
But that was my first thought is like, man, how fun will it be when we actually find out what those guys are taking? Okay, wait. So Jack said, you're not going to see it. I used to work in a private rehab, and the amount of drugs for someone in rehab alone is astonishing.
I do not doubt methadone is one of those damn drugs.
Well, I mean, methadone is the same.
Well, that's how they
it gets you high.
But that's how you get people off of heroin, though. You give them methadone.
But do you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do.
They give people off.
But it also gets you high.
Oh, all right. One ad for some pharmaceutical. Oh my God, I can't even talk.
One ad for a pharmaceutical drug I saw recently was, do your antidepressants give you some weirdly named form of Tourette Parkinson's shakes? Oh shit. Take this other drug to help with the shakes, and oh, the side effect is depression and the risk of suicide. Oh, Sunflower, that's a great post. I remember seeing the one.
Wait a minute, that goes with what they were saying with JFK.
Mhm.
So they had him on some drugs, and he'd have side effects from those, and they'd give him more drugs to counteract the side effects he was having from the initial drugs.
That is 100% real. But I remember watching back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago, you'd see all this commercial for this this medicine. I can't remember what it's called, but it was for a social anxiety disorder.
But it
Main-
gave you explosive diarrhea.
Main side effect, and they literally said this: explosive diarrhea. Not just like bad diarrhea. Explosive. So it's like, okay, you won't be afraid to go out in public, but you can't.
Yeah, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom.
You can't. Like if you're worried that's what's going to happen, you're stuck. You're not going in public.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Or you do, and that helps you
You
get
take
over
the
your
risk.
social
You take
anxiety.
the risk.
You're like,
Yeah.
whatever I did to that bathroom, I'm good.
Oh man, that's funny. Matt, what was your thoughts about the episode?
First thing you mentioned, I hadn't heard this in a while, like not in a long time, and in the light of the current format of hardcore history, things he says is this little caveat, and it's even before the intro. He's like, "Guys, here's up so you don't starve to death before dinner. Current long between episodes, so we're giving you something new."
Yeah.
And what does he say? He says
No,
it took.
I know. I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh my god!
Yep.
We wait 9 months for a 5-hour episode, and this one's 40 minutes. That
Right.
was hilarious to me.
Oh,
It's
I
so
love going back and
it's
listening
heartwarming.
to the old episodes because you can see the progression where he's fighting it. He's fighting his urge. He's fighting his addiction to context, right? And he's fighting it, and he's fighting it, and he's slowly losing the battle, and then he just gives up. Well, but you can hear him talking all the time, like, "I'm sorry for this episode. It's so long. We feel so bad. I guess it's like an audiobook. And then eventually he's like, well, you guys just told me to stop, just to keep making them longer. So that's what I'm gonna do."
Well, and it's just like when we saw him in Salt Lake City. He said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, no, we do have pause buttons. It's
Well,
okay. You could. It's not radio. You don't. It's okay if you talk. Nobody cares.
So we're in Salt Lake City. We're sitting there, and he's like, "Well, we got to be respectful of your time. We know you guys have lives." And that's when I shouted out, "Not here!" No, we don't. Because like everybody there would have listened to him for 3 more hours.
Oh, guaranteed.
If you're seeing Dan Carlin live, you're not like, "Oh shit, he's already gone an hour and a half." Like nobody's thinking that.
Yeah,
They're like, "Man, he could talk for another 5 hours," because he could talk for another 5 hours. He's that good.
Yeah.
Like Sunflower, you were there. Isn't that right? Yeah, the Blitz editions are like 4 hours long. Sunflower just commented with that, and she's right. I mean, there's literally no amount of time where I would be disappointed that Dan made it that long.
No.
Right, because you're right. I'll just take my time listening to it.
Well, that's great. It's not like a program that we can't.
It's an audiobook.
And we get reruns now.
Right.
You can just play it whenever you want.
Exactly. All right, I got to make
So
another
just-
drink.
so
Scott and Matt, you carry the conversation.
Cool.
Because I can't.
So
apparently.
I said Scott and Matt.
Right on,
Oh,
no problem.
God, you're sensitive.
Fuck off.
So just
You're like a girl. I take that back. You're like a sensitive.
So just
person.
going down the list here, yeah, he does start with JFK, and that's probably, it's very important to Americans because it's recent in our history, and he starts with the line, he was a charismatic leader, everybody thought he was so vital, but in fact he had severe health medical issues. And then he does mention the steroids, Scott, but he goes right into the name of the doctor, I think it was Jacobson or something like that.
Dr. Feelgood.
Who was called Dr. Feelgood and was visited by rock stars. So they went there to get this shot of vitamins and steroids and amphetamines, and it would pump him up. You know what I mean? And so the steroids, we saw the bloating of the face, but he was definitely high. And then Dan points out that 2 of the most important incidents of JFK's presidential career were kind of bungled. Like one was the summit with Khrushchev, where and then there was another very important one. But the Cuban Missile Crisis handled was probably when he was off the drugs.
Yeah.
So talking about alternate history, how much So let's just look at the meeting with Khrushchev. So Kennedy goes into a room, a conference room with Khrushchev, and he comes out a shaken man. Like he is chastised. Khrushchev treated him like a boy. He later regretted it, but he had to be hard with him, and he absolutely annihilated Kennedy in those talks. Following that, Kennedy said, "You know what? We're going to lash out however we can. Here's some Green Berets in Vietnam. Let's get involved over there." Boom, builds up. Boom, builds up. Boom, builds up. 7 years later, it's the horrible Vietnam War that had such an impact on our culture and our reputation as our national morality. So if he had done better in that meeting, perhaps we might not have had to pursue Vietnam. That is a huge piece of history there that could have been affected by drugs or the lack thereof.
Well, sure, but I mean, also the question is, when he had that meeting with Khrushchev, was he high? Is that why he got rolled in that conversation?
Well, I think that's what Matt was.
That's what Dan makes that illusion. That
Right.
He says he was always on drugs, and then the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he did well, performed well,
And then you think about
is when he probably was.
Right. Sorry. So one of the things that I think about a lot. Okay, so Sunflower jumps in. Honestly, the president isn't the one making 90% of the decisions. How much bureaucracy is behind the facade that actually keeps things running and dictating what gets to happen, which isn't what you might expect. But on one hand, it might help diffuse some of the one person on drugs bad decisions. Right. But also, this is in a crisis that becomes less true.
But it also depends on which leader we're talking about, too. Because, if you're talking about a Stalin, he had complete control. Or if you're talking about a Hitler, he pretty much...
I think she's talking about our country.
Oh, fair enough.
Right, and I think the bureaucracy wasn't as big then. I think that's a good point, especially right now. Like, I don't worry about Trump or Biden, like, being able to, like, launch nukes. Like, there's enough infrastructure and bureaucracy there that we'll be okay.
But they can't.
Yeah.
Theoretically. But there will be people that say no. Like, there just is. Unless there's a good reason. We don't have a system where one man's just going to go run amok because he's on a bender. Oh, hell yeah, Jack, you can speak. Matt, how do we accept that?
I just accepted it.
Sweet.
I just invited him, so it should be good.
Go ahead, boss.
I think he's got to get added to the stage.
Yeah.
There it goes. Oh,
man. Yeah, whatever you
type
want
it
to
up
say.
and we'll make Scott read it in a what kind of accent do you think he should have? Italian?
No,
Russian?
not Italian.
German?
Russian.
Simple Jack's a German accent, I think.
I don't think Simple Jack is a German accent. You make me happy.
Simple Jack.
We're not doing that. We're not doing it in a Simple Jack accent from the movie.
Why?
Because that is not going to be very... That's a little bit too...
Yeah, but that's Tropic Thunder.
I know, and we know that movie. But how many people get that reference? Of our listeners, if we're lucky, half?
Matthew McConaughey?
All right.
Scott can do
We
that.
got Jack Simple here talking with a little
Oh,
bit of
shit.
North Texas accent. Yeah.
Who the hell
All right,
knew
come
Matt
on,
could
bring
just
it,
whip
bring
out
it.
a Texas drawl?
He was just thinking about Dazed and Confused.
Now, we have been
All
underutilizing Matt. That's a bummer.
Do you have any weed? No.
Cooler.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
Mm-hmm.
The mess of Lunesta. Okay, so we could talk. Let's talk. This is a good. So Dave talks about
Is
politics
that the sleeping
being
pill?
Yeah.
affected by drugs, but like, how about American culture? American cultural figures. What about like Oprah, or not Oprah, but Whoopi Goldberg, like getting canceled because she tweeted on Ambien, and that I think that's what he's alluding to. You guys know
Barr.
anyone that did messed up stuff? Yeah, Lunesta. Yeah,
Mhm.
people go trippy on Ambien and all these weird over the like
Mhm.
prescription quote unquote pharmaceuticals nowadays.
Right.
And it's causing all this cultural uproar or whatever, and they're like public figures and they have influence. But
Right.
yeah, imagine Biden or Trump causing an international conundrum. So I think that it comes down to the cult of personality around that person, and as George so astutely stated, the bureaucracy in place. So if you have a cult of personality like Trump and you've literally built your cabinet out of your own family,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Then people are less likely to say no to you in those kind of situations. Eventually that will get down the chain of command to where it's like the military and no, sir, we are not launching the nukes. But on a day-to-day basis, you can sign things, you can make things happen. You can go out in public, you can tweet, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You can cause great
Right.
amounts of influence with your personal character, and that is determined by the drugs that you're currently on, which may
Right.
be recreational or may just have been injected into your bloodstream moments prior to you stepping on stage to deliver the State of the Union address.
Yes.
What
I feel
was
like that's probably what happened there. Why did he come out so hot? Like
when he never talks like that ever?
got-
Whatever he's got, I want some of it because, like, I don't
Right.
speak that well either, dude.
Well, it's not that the
My
speaking
thoughts are
well.
not my thought.
Right.
My thoughts are not
Yeah.
organized that well when I'm speaking. Is what I
Well,
meant to say.
remember,
So
he's
yeah,
not thinking.
he's
them
not
well.
organizing his thoughts. He's reading off.
He's reading.
Hey, we're reading off a teleprompter right now. The chat of
Right.
our loyal fan base.
Right. Exactly.
I could
So-
see Biden with like one of those watches that kind of flips open.
Well, they have a
little-
teleprompter.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm talking about the watch with a little bit of Coke in it. He just,
Oh.
hey, I'm good.
I think he would be more.
Just keep me going. So we talked about alternate history. What are some other decisions that could have been made? So JFK, we talked about Vietnam, right?
I
And
wanna-
then
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Matt. I was just going to jump in because you asked that question, and so before you
Yeah.
took the time to answer your own question, I thought I actually had already thought
Please.
of something like this.
yeah,
And
let's go.
what really occurred to me that Dan kind of missed on is psychedelics
Sure.
and how much they've affected human history. Right.
So we're talking about mushrooms then for the majority of human
Or ergot.
history, right?
It's not even
Or
necessarily
ergot, right?
purposely taking mushrums either, right? Like
Right,
ergot
no.
poisoning.
Yeah, you could accidentally. Yeah, there's been
Prophets of doom.
incidents of incidents of mass hysteria that might have been attributable to that. Yep.
Maybe.
Or
Or
bread
look at
mold and all. bread
yeah,
mold
the
and all this kind of stuff.
oracles. That's what I wanted to jump to. The oracles of Delphi, right? Like, yeah,
That's great.
we don't
That's great.
think
That's
they
a
were
great
oracles.
example.
Oracles, right? We don't believe that they actually knew the future. But if people then, and Dan talked about this in the other episode, if people then believed he knew the future, then
That has
Holy
caused
shit.
or prevented wars. The
Caused
Oracle
wars,
at
yeah.
Delphi
Mhm.
was
And what if they
The
were sipping on shrooms?
was the advisor to kings,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So you would go there and you would say,
Yeah.
should I invade this country? And they'd be like, yeah, if you invade this country, a great empire will fall. And they'd be like, oh, great, that means my enemy. Oh, no, it meant
Mhm.
mine. I'm going
Right.
to fall. And then all this other history happens. And
Right.
that was because, do you know what the Oracle at Delphi, do you know what that looked like? The Oracle at Delphi was, you went there and you went to like this cave. I don't know if it was specifically a cave, but there was
Mhm.
like a volcanic vent, and they hung them suspended in like this
Right.
hammock over this vent where
That
these
kicked off all these
noxious fumes would rise up,
Right.
and they would sit there and they would like give you your prophecy, right?
right.
That was like inhaling fumes from magma. I mean, it was
right.
just
I mean, you
the
know
most
that
insane.
it's gonna do some
Right.
brain damage. One thing, and
So-
two, it probably
yeah.
caused
yeah, sure.
some
Personally,
actual
and
hallucinations.
and the actions of kings, geopolitics of the era, were dependent on the decision-making process of these people who were not even on good things like mushrooms, right?
And then so Jack
they were
said-
they were huffing magma fumes.
Right, Matt. Can you read Jack's last quote, the last message? I think it's a good one.
I consider psychedelics.
No,
like
no, no, no.
mushrooms
Matthew
totally-
McConaughey voice. Come on.
Oh, I could. All right, let me get into it. All right. I consider psychedelics like mushrooms totally being a performance-enhancing drug, unless you're a super paranoid dictator.
And I think that's actually a great point. And Jack just gave us another one I want to get to, but
His next one is even better.
drug. A performance-enhancing drug is interesting. You hear about that a lot with like the Berserkers and the Vikings and stuff, and maybe that's true or maybe it's not.
Teddy Roosevelt, maybe on anabolic steroids.
That's not psychedelic.
Wow.
No, but it's a performance-enhancing drug.
But we're talking about, okay, so what I think Jack meant by that is like
let's talk
in
about
warfare.
psychedelics.
But he talked about psychedelics and as a performance-enhancing drug probably in warfare, right? That At least that's what I was taking it to mean. And so my thought process there is, what if really what it was doing was helping get over the PTSD?
Well, that might be. Well, it depends.
Damn.
If you're on mushrooms, things move or seem to move slower.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. It might. I don't know.
Does.
But for battle, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not.
No, that's better.
Maybe, I don't know. But
George, can we go back?
Yeah.
Can we go back to a previous episode of yours?
Sure.
Which was, I forget which one it was, but we were discussing
PTSD.
And Sebastian Younger's book on combat and PTSD.
Right.
And it's called Tribe. And I remember commenting at the time, I had just heard an interview with him with former Navy SEAL Andy Stumpf. And
Yes.
he was saying that the difference between, okay, so why are military units so bonded, and why do social problems occur to people who are removed from that bond, is because these, back in the day in tribal societies, they experienced the trauma together and they processed the trauma together. So one thing that psychedelics are good for is processing trauma. But when you're talking about psychedelics and warfare, it really goes back to tribalism. And these people would get hopped up on drugs, on mushrooms. They go out, they see their enemy as whatever their shaman invoked it to be, or whatever you perceived it as being. But when they got back, they processed all these feelings together in a social setting, and that circle is very important. I was actually a member. Before I moved, I was actually a member of a place called the Port Townsend Psychedelic Society, which is where I'm from. And we got entheogens removed from criminal status in our county by going to the county board, the town council, for their therapeutic effects for treating PTSD and stuff like that. So you have to imagine going to warfare on these drugs, but also processing your trauma on them, which is a very important thing you mentioned, George. I think let's just follow up with Jack so we can get the sunflower, because this chat is popping off. Big question: how much psychedelic drugs have affected the influence of religion and/or important people, converting an entire people to a world-impacting religion? That's it right there.
Bingo.
Most religions do spring from something.
If it's not
forced in
a psychedelic, it could be a vision quest, which you're getting a psychedelic trip from
experiences that we have with psychedelics. Yeah, so there's a lot of permutations or permeations of the mushroom, of entheogens in modern religion. The Pope's staff has a pine cone on it, the pineal gland, DMT, all this kind of stuff. So mushrooms were basically created the first religions. I mean, if you want to be very broad about it without delving
probably
into it.
And the one thing I found interesting, I was listening to this Daniele Bolelli podcast, and he pointed out something that I really hadn't thought about much, but he's like, basically almost all major religions started with a vision quest, right? Jesus goes out into the desert after he's baptized for 40 days and fasts, and same thing with Muhammad and Buddha. Well, when you do that, the process of fasting like that, you're creating a psychedelic experience similar to what you would get if you took mushrooms.
A near-death experience.
Yeah,
yes.
But I mean, like, your body will start to hallucinate if you fast long enough and you do it right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely
right?
will. Yeah.
There's people who can get themselves to hallucination levels almost with breathing techniques, right? So it really is like the visions that most of the people who started these big religions which started on these psychedelic vision quests.
I think
It's
that
very
seeing
interesting.
the origin, I think that seeing the origin of religion as biological based is very important.
Yeah, it's an evolution. It evolved. It's an evolutionary trait that helped us. That helped the people who were in that religion survive. It is an
And
adaptive trait, just like
when
anything
we say
else.
religion in that context, we mean a divine experience, but also, as you said, as you're following up with George,
Right.
a social bonding organization. Yeah. What's Sunflower?
Right. So,
really
well,
gave us she
yeah.
gave us a paragraph here. So, well,
She said,
this is no.
I'm
This
just
is
going to read
Sunflower.
Sunflowers. I don't.
All right, yeah, please do.
We don't need to creep everybody out with Matt's girl voice like that. I'm going to lose listeners.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, we're going to lose listeners. Well, back in the day, people thought of gods as effective if they protected you against your enemies. So if your region got conquered and then the rulers said, "Hey, you need to worship our gods now," the people might not have had a problem with it because, well, their gods let them get conquered, and the new gods must be good because they let your conquerors take your land. Which
That's right.
We got your god.
I think yes, but I think that makes So she said in follow up. So in some kinds of cases, it's more like collective psychology. I think that's a great point.
Sure.
And I also think, well, I think that kind of religion makes way more sense to me.
But you know what?
Like if you're I'm gonna go with what is proven. If this guy lost, screw him. I'm gonna pick this guy.
But that doesn't really apply to some religions because look at
old school religions.
Look at Judaism. It's been around for 4,000 years.
And
Ish.
What made them unique at the time?
But they kept the religion.
No, but what made them unique at the time? It was this is the only God.
Yeah, but
all the other religions, but they thought there was a bunch of gods, and your God's real, but my God's real, and my God's better. Judaism is there's only one God, and these are the chosen people,
and it's not yours.
And that sparked off a series of events in history that leads to events that are happening still today.
Sure,
which is
now
just bananas.
Jack, my hat. I'm going to tip my hat to you here, buddy.
Well, first you got to read what he said.
All right, mushrooms.
Oh yeah, give him a Russian accent. Let's really fuck with people.
Mushrooms can certainly give you an edge on the physical battlefield, but it is also a creative catalyst. Imagine everyone always doing things a certain way, and a whole society gets stuck in a mold of doing things. Psychedelics can open an entire different way of looking at things. Jesus.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna jump the accent now.
And now you're the disrupting agent of change.
Can we delve in a bit more into Sunflower's comment there? Because I think it's a very important point you make, George, about monotheism versus pantheon of gods, right? So if you have so for the majority of human history, there have been personal gods, and a variety of gods. Okay, a god was an expression of a certain biological function, an emotional expression, a psychological aspect of our nature. But then Judaism came along, and this is not the only one, but it is certainly the most prominent, which led to Christianity, and the most prominent monotheistic religion. Said this is the only God. All your other gods either false or under this one parts of it. And so there can be no other God. So the part about changing your God because they betrayed you, if you're a Jew, if you're a member of the Judaistic society, that would only inflame you more, right? My God was affronted, whereas if you had a personal God with limitations according to its status under the Almighty, quote unquote, then you could have turned from that God to another stronger one. But Christians, I mean, they're not going to relieve themselves of Christianity because something stronger comes along. It's going to flame. I think it's a very interesting.
Well, it's because the change in the
observation,
right?
I think it's a really good observation. We really need to make the distinction between a pantheon as it was for the majority of human history and monotheism, which really shapes the entire civilization in which we now reside.
Which gets us to Tom Holland's book. What is it? I think it's Dominion. I want to do that for a book club event soon because I'm going to read it anyway. But the whole premise is he looks at all the ways that Christianity has absolutely, completely shaped everything about our world.
Yeah, I want to
And
read that one too, man.
the more I hear him talk about it, the more I'm like, well, I think he's right. Right. And I kind of knew that anyway.
So
but to have it
I think
pointed
I think
out
he's
is
gonna delve.
interesting.
I think he's gonna delve deep into it. I think he's gonna hit
Right.
hard in some places, and there's touchy subjects there. But I mean, like, it is
Mhm.
very true. I'm in a Christian book club just so I can learn about Christianity,
Sure.
and I can tell you that so we're studying the Screw Tape Letters, and the pastor asked questions to the group, his congregation, about these
Mhm.
things, and one of the ones that came up led me to the response in our little study group. Well, it'll make people seem like you're trying to take over the world with religion, and I can tell you that at a certain point there was very few elements of resistance regarding that. Okay, I'm not saying
Right.
that was the intention, but it kind of seemed like,
Oh,
let's blur the lines
some
between
people
what
were
we
doing
consider to be religiously moral, even now in this day, as far as like women's rights or women's biological rights and all this kind of
Right.
stuff, and what it says literally from the Bible, which means the King James Bible, the King James version, or the New Testament, and so I've been right there to the point of that conversation where it becomes an edgy thing, and it's not something I delved into in the moment because it was not an appropriate time to discuss that. But I can tell you that I'm very much looking forward to Tom Holland's
Yeah. I got
flat laying it out of facts. Like I
Mhm.
think that, like, in that book will probably be all the edgy stuff, and that if it is accepted down the line, you know what I mean?
Right.
But we do live in a world. America is. I mean, there's
The
a
West.
variety of
The
cultures and
West.
religions in America. But you talk to somebody who looks like you or me, and plenty of other people, and they'll say America is a Christian country. It was founded to be a Christian country, and it was founded on Christian ideals. And so that's the sense of minority that comes from that, even though that may not be the case nowadays. But
Right.
the dominion that he's talking about has absolutely already happened in Europe. And maybe evolving nowadays, but in America, no matter what it actually looks like, it is still our precept, and that's very important to consider in our concepts of patriotism.
It's not just our precept
and our moral culture.
Yes, our moral culture. The fact that we think about things like human rights, the fact that we think about things like empathy, and we worry about how many of the civilians of the enemies we kill. We worry about that. That's a Christian thing.
Yeah.
That's not in most other religions.
No.
That's a very unique thing, and that's what he talked about on one of the episodes of The Rest is History. He's like, all right, I'm not religious, but what he talked about is Jesus's idea of empathy is like pretty groundbreaking, right? And I think
Monotheism itself is pretty groundbreaking. It
Sure.
just broke all, and that's caused wars. I mean, you
Sure.
have to say your God is right and indomitable, and
but
it
it's not
any other
though. That's
possibility.
not monotheism in general, because you look at the Jews didn't start wars to convert people to Judaism because they don't think that they need to spread Judaism.
No,
Christianity-
you're born a Jew and you're a Jew.
Christianity
I mean,
is all about spreading Christianity.
Yeah.
Judaism is, well, if you're the chosen people, if you're a Jew, and if you're not, then that's okay. But they don't go trying to go proselytize. So that's not a trait of monotheism as much as specific to certain monotheistic religions.
Well, one
So
thing
yeah, you're right. Well,
Go ahead, Matt.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think honing in on that really quick. Like, yeah, if you could have a monotheistic. I was going to compare that to Genghis Khan when he says all religions are accepted under me, but I'll tolerate you as far as we maintain peace. But then if you call if so an adherent to a monotheistic religion might have tolerance for other religions as aspects of your God. But when you call yourself, the chosen people of that God, and that all must adhere to it, things get touchy. You know what I mean? And that causes a lot of conflict. What were you going to say, Scott?
Oh, well, one thing when you brought up like the King James version of the Bible, I mean, I'll be interested to see if Tom Holland gets into like the canons, like the first 3 canons, and then pre-King James version, because they left out a lot of like the Book of Revelations wasn't in the Bible until the King James version, which is interesting because they thought that the religion was too. The fact that the world was going to end, or the Book of Revelations, they said it was just too much for common people to be able to handle. Like they couldn't. No, seriously, like that's why they didn't put it in.
I think you'd have to check that.
No,
because the common people when they first put out the Bibles couldn't read.
No, I know, but the preachers,
presses.
the priests would be preaching it. That's
As far as it to be passed along by preachers and pastors, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. So as far as from what I remember, theologically for Christianity, they withheld the Book of Revelations for quite a long time, and the canons decided a lot of things, what was added into the Bible, or what was mass produced. But I'm just.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm making funny faces.
Yeah, I know you're making funny face at the camera. George making a drink. Funny face.
We have a separate camera pointed at the bar that will.
But I don't know.
That's interesting.
When you get to that information, if you ever get to that information, Matt, it'd be
we're going to
interesting
read that book, Scott.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean he gets into the canon.
The point is,
this speaks
anyway,
to.
I think this has been a fun, interesting aside.
Yeah, Sunflower. What happened?
So this has been a fun, interesting aside, but I think I would believe what you want, but pray to the con. Exactly, Jack. And Sunflower, I think
for the con.
Right. I think you raised a great point there that Matt kind of touched on in the comments. And so people can read the comments on the screen if they're watching this, but yeah, religion completely changed, and the shape of it is now is nothing like what it was when you had, if you go even further back, you had a God that made it rain. You had a God that made the wind blow. And all of those things make a ton of sense. And then you get to these monotheistic religions, and you're like, this is legit doctrine that is complicated, and you need somebody to break it down to make it understandable for the average person. It shows an advancement in society that you can have a class of religious people you have enough extra that you can have a class of religious people. Okay, shit. Sunflower just wrote a book. All right, let's all read this. 1 second.
Well, before the time of before the King James Version, the Bible wasn't even available for the common person to read. William Tyndale translated the Bible into English before then and got burned at the stake for his trouble. But that's part of what the Protestant Reformation was about, translating the Bible into the language of the common people so people could read it for themselves and not just go to Mass and hear it in Latin, which nobody would know. And then you just have to accept whatever the priest tells you.
100% nailed that. That's Luke Martin, translated to German. Tyndale.
That's what I was going to do. That's what I was going to bring up in relation to something that Jack posted today. He was looking for the reference to which Hardcore History episode Dan was talking about the mercenaries who woke up in the morning after drunken revelry. Yep, and couldn't figure out if the sun was rising or setting, and decided to attack and change the battle. Yeah, that was Prophets of Doom. And so in that, Martin Luther, it was all about the Anabaptists, right? And but that goes without digging into that. That goes back to Martin Luther, and Martin Luther's big deal was he wanted to make the words of Latin, the words of God, this alien language, as Dan describes it, available to all the people. And so Dan describes it as, what if we aliens made contact made contact with aliens, and we received the Encyclopedia Galactica, but we couldn't read it, and only these select few people could read it, and those would be passing it on.
I didn't know what Sunflower just posted. She went into a lot of depth about the development of the Bible one there, the end that I think is really interesting is she said King James version of the Bible was meant to be approved version for the government to try and keep the pesky preachers from putting out all their versions of the Bible.
Exactly. And then they chose and modified stories,
For sure.
or they've cherry picked what was in the Bible, and then seriously,
you know what
I'm
I
telling
love
you, they cherry
about our podcast and especially about our audience and this discussion right now.
What?
This is about Hardcore History, episode 20, History Under Influence, and then we've now had a 20-minute discussion about the Bible with nothing to do with alcohol or any of the influence. I love it. I'm not complaining at all. I think that's what's fun about this, because these are real conversations.
But
You
seriously,
start off with the premise and you go where it takes you.
the King James version was a cherry picked version of the Bible.
Sure.
It is a cherry picked version.
They all are.
Yes.
They literally all are.
Well, there were 13 apostles.
Yeah, but so
and they all wrote their own book.
right, but somebody, I think this was Tom Holland actually said this, so Rest is History just did an episode about Martin Luther, and he pointed out that if you go back and read those other books of the Bible or of the prophets, the gospel, excuse me, that's what the term I was looking for.
Yeah.
The reason they left them out is because they're not well written. Their accounts aren't very good. They're oftentimes not historically accurate.
I'm waiting for you to hit one more point.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the point I was waiting for is they may portray Jesus as something other than the Son of God and just a man.
Right. And so what
Wow.
Sunflower said there is the books considered canon. I don't know if that's true, Scott. The books considered canon in the New Testament now were all the books that were either written directly by one of the apostles, and that's what. So she said directly by one of the apostles or by somebody who they directly discipled.
Yeah.
And that is what Tom Holland said as well. The other books, part of the reason they didn't include them is they were written much later.
Sure.
So who knows how long they got passed down or if they were completely made up. So there was thought to it. You can assume that there's reasons that for manipulation that they left in what they did and what they didn't. It also could just be they really were trying for historical accuracy. I don't know. I'm not going to take the time to go read all the other gospels because I have 18 podcasts I want to listen to.
From 1,400 years later.
No. This started 100 years later or 300 years later at the Council of Nicaea. That's where they were already putting together the Gospels and leaving out some of the Gospels, and that didn't happen with King James. That happened at the First Council of Nicaea. If Sunflower, you probably know. Am I wrong there? Isn't that what it is?
Well, the King James version of the Bible came out in 1611.
Yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. They were already doing this way before then.
I gotcha, but
way before that. They've always been doing it, and that's every religion. Right, I don't think that's unique to the Bible, to Christianity. Maybe it is though. I mean, maybe Muhammad just wrote what he wrote and they left it, and maybe the Torah is the Torah. But Christianity spread so much. There's so many different peoples, and what Jack said earlier. Okay,
Nicaea or something.
Yeah, so Sunflower basically said, "Yes, Scott's an idiot, and I'm right." That's not
she
what
did
said.
not say
That's
that.
not what she said. She said it. She was maybe at the Council of Nicaea or one of those. So, but what Jack said earlier was really great when he said that's why he likes Thor's Angels, because it's the interaction of early Christianity with the pagans and then how it adapted. And I gotta tell you, before I listened to that episode, that stuff never occurred to me.
Warrior Jesus.
Oh man, like holy shit, is that a good episode?
The adaptation of Jesus into the warrior culture of the Vikings is fascinating to me. It really is.
I have to give a shout out though to Matt Dinneman for Dungeon Crawler Carl. I laughed hysterically when
so that's a book series.
Yeah.
A book series.
When he talks about Uzi Jesus, it's absolutely hilarious.
Sure,
just hilarious. Sacrilegious, but hilarious.
So Sunflower, when you say church history, that's what exactly do you mean by that? That's really interesting. I mean, what a wealth of knowledge we've received from our
Both,
from our
both
contributors.
look, hey,
this
both
evening.
of our audience members are all in this.
That is really interesting. Yeah, that's the details of the way
Oh,
that
so Sunflower said that her pastor's going through the church's history on Wednesday nights, and they're putting up in a podcast feed, which I know a few friends of mine actually listen to some podcast feeds where they're going through the Bible. I don't know which one their particular one they listen to, but it's cool if it's your pastor that is doing it, because then you can always go ask him a question, right? So that's cool.
And to expand on Sunflower's point, I think the canons were like started in 400 AD, if I remember
So the
correctly.
Council of Nicaea, I think, was like 380 or 350.
Close enough.
Right. And that is where a lot of these things got hammered. There was and this was in Thor's Angels too, the original heresies, which is great because they were fighting about whether or not the blood, the bread actually turns into Jesus and the blood turns into his blood.
a ridiculous
the wine
thing to
turns
fight
into his
over.
blood.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's great.
So let me just shout Sunflower for the extensive knowledge of
No, it's
Christianity
fun.
and the history behind, not only behind
Okay.
the modern day church, but how we interpret what is the source material, that is being
Sure.
taught out there.
Absolutely.
But I just want to say that I have made contact with a very respectable gentleman who's a pastor of a Baptist Christian church, and I find him to be one of the most respectable and knowledgeable individuals I've ever met in my entire life. Our conversations have been the most interesting and fulfilling. Like I have breached my boundary regarding that religion to learn more about it due to his.
It's fun, right? Learning more stuff, and it's
he has a
ancient
good
stuff.
He has a good touch with me. Like I told him, look,
Matt likes the way he
I don't
touches
know
them.
about this, and he's very cool about it.
No,
So
it's
I've
good.
delved, and I just want to say that like Christianity is fascinating, and the people who
absolutely.
engage in it are very, very, very interesting people.
Oh man,
I want
Matt,
to learn about it.
I
Yeah.
agree. And the thing that's crazy is that you can have like a really cursory knowledge and just go to church a couple times a year. And again, I'm not religious, but those people, they're happy. But then
They're
you
happy,
can get
but they're
into the weeds. You can get
Yeah.
into the weeds with it, and it's high level philosophy.
It is.
Aquinas,
And
Thomas More.
this gentleman,
it is like
yeah.
these were the people that were the smartest people for like 1,000 years. The smartest people were these people who were just thinking about Christianity and Christ and God. It's like, well, you're going to get some really intelligent shit out of them, even if it's based on something you don't believe. It's going to be very intelligent and well thought out stuff. Like one of my good friends is really into it, and like he knows the theology and all that stuff, and it's different, man. All right, but I'm going to steer the ship back to what Jack. I think Jack's trying to get us back on topic, and I like that because every once in a while we got to do that.
Hey, if any listeners want to hear more about ramblings about biblical or the Bible or anything religion, just let us know and we'll do an episode on that.
Sure.
All right.
So Jack said, whenever you guys are ready for an extreme turn towards left field,
let's do it.
I feel like we are always ready. That is kind of our shtick. You guys, are you all aware of the occult psychedelic history behind Jet Propulsion Laboratory?
So JPL.
Yeah,
let's talk about this right now.
Leader who is deep into
Turn
occult
me on.
stuff and changes an entire society because they are on a nonstop binge with sex, magic, and speed. Oh, bender of sex, magic, and speed. Holy shit, Jack! Sounds like you just made a Netflix series.
It is already.
I know
a
guy who's a writer that could help you with that.
It's already been done. It's called Strange Angel. It's based on the book of the same name.
No shit.
It's the biography of Jack Parsons. So Jack Parsons was an amateur jet propulsion, or was an amateur jet propulsion engineer. Okay, so
Sure.
he kind of like mixed up chemicals in his garage. And this is the time. This is the early turn of the century, like early 1900s, when Aleister Crowley's teachings were becoming more prevalent, and it was the later end of Aleister Crowley's actually like physical personal influence, but his movement, his people were gaining more influence, and this affected even people like the guy who invented Scientology. So there was like a lot of stuff going on at the time. So Jack Parsons was an amateur engineer, or an amateur chemical engineer, and he invented like rocket fuel. He invented a lot of the stuff that we use today. There's a freaking laboratory named after him, jet propulsion. Yeah, so
That's
there
cool.
is. He had a significant influence on this. So
Jack, is that what you were talking? I think Jack's answering back to this because I'm wondering if that's what he was
became
referring to.
involved. He became involved with these occult people, and it was very much the counterculture of the time, but it was a subverted counterculture where it was like, I mean,
like
so
Timothy Leary.
there was a movement before hippies, and that was do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. This was Aleister Crowley's prophecy of the new Aeon. This is entirely different mythology than you're used to accustomed to dealing with, and a lot of people subscribe to this. Okay, so Jack Parsons is a prominent figure in American science and literally history because of the science he contributed, and he was also an adherent to occult mysticism, and he died in his garage when he dropped a can of chemicals. Like, that dude was awesome.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't Dan?
We'll never know for sure.
I swear to God, this was in one of Dan Carlin's podcasts where he was talking about, like cowboy physics or something like that, where they took like the young and brightest people, and they gave them tons of money and just said, go invent shit.
Sure.
That was a podcast. That was Dan's.
I don't know. Might have been in a Blitz episode. It might have been the one with Elon.
He said it was in like the 1950s when he was like, oh, they gave all the young, like the best and the brightest. They gave them here's a bunch of money, and they were partying and doing drugs and drinking or whatever. And then they came up with a whole bunch of neat ideas and stuff to make. I swear to God it was Dan Carlin, but I could be wrong.
Oh, that's cool. So Sunflower shared the podcast that she was talking about. That's great. Okay, so then Jack said, America wouldn't have made it to the moon without these madmen. Describing this magical operation as the Babylon working, he hoped to bring about the incarnation of Thelemite goddess Babylon unto earth. He allowed Hubbard to take part as his scribe. Hubbard's the one who started the Scientology, believing that he was particularly sensitive to detecting magical phenomenon. As described by Richard Metzger, Parsons jerked off in the name of spiritual advancement while Hubbard scanned the astral plane for signs and visions.
So what is meant?
Holy shit, man!
Sex magic.
So let me jump with that.
Please do.
Okay. So we're talking about history under the influence. We're talking about psychedelics. We're talking about these counterculture things. Joe Rogan had this guy on a couple years ago. Wrote a book about Charles Manson. And his theory is that Charles Manson was actually the doctor who worked with the CIA with Operation Midnight Climax.
The book is named Chaos.
Thank you. Yeah. Operation Midnight Climax, which is a real operation the CIA did. And this came out in the church hearings in the 70s.
On Johns with prostitutes.
They tested it on military people in the military who were going to prostitutes on bases. They had the prostitutes dose them with just random amounts of LSD to find out what happened. No, it sounds fun. Except one guy had a bad trip and went out and stabbed somebody. and killed them.
So that's what the government does to people, yeah.
Well,
And that book is
and
great. Like,
that's
if you
what the
can check out that
government
book
did
called
with
Chaos
people because of the Cold War, right? Like that's why the Cold War is such a big thing. 'Cause
Paranoia.
It broke so many people's brains. Well, is it paranoia? Or is it, well, we think the communists are doing this and we need to know.
That's paranoia.
Is it?
It's
What
either
if the communists
that's-
were doing that shit? What if they were? And we needed to know. Like,
so
what
that's
if?
either paranoia or planned.
You're
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
just
okay,
worried
so-
about when you don't see. You got to remember, these people lived in a world that in 1900 the plane hadn't first taken off, and now they were landed on the moon.
We have the yeah.
60 years later.
Maybe mind control drugs seemed really reasonable.
Well, the guy that invented
I think
MDMA.
that America was freaking out.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry, go ahead,
rightly
Scott.
so. Rightly so, they were freaking out. All the nuclear
Because
weapons.
because the Soviet Union had no morals, but ostensibly access to all the resources of America. That
All
made
the
them a greater
resources,
adversary.
right. And
That
spies
made them a
everywhere.
greater adversary. That made them a greater adversary in our eyes, according to the people who were allowed to perceive them that way. And so they were considered to be a threat. In reality, they were up to some nefarious shit, right? And because they had no morality, you know what I mean? But they also had great aspirations.
Sure, but what do you do?
Built stars. They built.
You have to.
But when you are faced with the unknown and you project your greatest fears onto it, you will become the response to those greatest fears. And George, you and I discussed this personally as well as publicly in the Death Rows of the Republic episode 1, where you create the image of an enemy and they react in the most severe way possible to it, right? And that changes you into something, where you're now have CIA agents dosing Johns through hookers.
The only
because
thing
you
that
think
I
the
think,
Soviet Union's doing it to their
but
people.
the only thing I think you
It's
did
insane.
wrong, that you might be implying there, that it was done because they were using the power. They didn't really believe the threat, and I don't think that's true. I think that at least a percentage of them, the people during the Cold War, really thought the Soviet Union was as bad as they thought, because you have to remember, they're thinking of Stalin as Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Right? That wasn't that long ago. That wasn't that long ago to them. That is a different animal than a Khrushchev or a Gorbachev Soviet Union. If you're facing a Stalin with nuclear weapons, holy fuck, are you scared? That guy's nuts. Does mutually assured destruction hold if it's Stalin?
Probably.
Hopefully.
So just
does it hold if
getting
it's
back to Dan's
Beria?
episode.
No.
Maybe.
Back
That
to
guy was
Dan's
crazy.
Dan's episode real quick. He did mention Stalin in the context of history under the influence, and we all know the story of Germany betrays the Soviet Union and invades, right? Operation Barbarossa, June 22nd, 1942. Or yeah. So he
Scott's making him
and then
drink.
Stalin
I'm
goes.
listening, Matt.
Stalin goes into he disappears for a week, right?
Yep.
And Dan says he was just probably on a bender, like he was just getting drunk the whole time.
That's the theory, right?
Those first crucial days of response to a massive assault by an existential enemy could have made all the difference in the world. I mean, so that's history being changed right there by being drunk.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you want to take it back to the boring episode you want to talk about, Matt, instead of just these wild things.
We got way field, and that is exactly what this podcast is about.
Yep.
I love this. Like,
yeah, me too. Because
Sometimes
that's how real conversations work. So Jack said most conspiracy sounding stuff ever that is not a conspiracy a fact. LOL. You're right. The church hearings, Operation Midnight Climax, if that didn't come out in congressional hearings with proven documentation, there's no effing way I would have believed that. Especially like 5 years ago. No way.
What was the one where they wanted to sabotage an American warship and blame it on somebody to start the Vietnam War or something like that? Like,
I don't know.
Joe
I don't
Rogan
know if I
talks
buy
about it a
that.
lot.
I don't know if I buy that.
No. No. There's one where
Yeah,
they
that's
wanted
definitely
to.
a thing because like the guy who that's the lead singer of the Doors. His dad was the general on that or the admiral on that ship.
Jim Morrison.
Yeah, Jim Morrison's dad was
Right,
the general on the ship that fired on that
and
ship.
we're talking about history under the
the
influence
Gulf
here,
of
and we're talking
Tonkin,
about
wasn't it?
the Gulf of Tonkin, right? So we started talking about social influence in modern day, but you raise a good point, George, which is social influence during the time when all these wars were going on, and Chaos is an amazing book because it does postulate, and I think
Jesus.
fairly well proves that
Right.
Charles Manson
It was a government
not only
plan.
received his drugs from someone his parole officer had one client who which is not the case. Usually I have like 50 clients, right? The guy was
least.
operating out of an office associated with the CIA on Haight-Ashbury. Charles Manson got arrested or was raided. His property was raided. The property he was squatting on was raided by the sheriffs with underage girls and drugs and guns and stolen cars. And then, he was it makes the case that he was an informant. And so if this guy was purposely fed LSD to start a counterculture hippie movement and then murder people and look bad, how did that affect our culture and our perception of such things nowadays?
That's a whole lot of ask there, Matt.
Shit, a whole lot of ass.
Yeah, that's ask.
So I don't think Matt has a whole lot of ass.
No, I don't think he's got a whole lot of ass.
You should
barely
never
have
know.
an ass.
We only see the top half of them.
That's the whole lot.
What if he did have a huge ass? And we
Scott,
just
I'm
never
not-
I'm not wearing pants right now,
Never
Scott.
Oh my God, what was that quote from George? That's going to annoy me for weeks.
You'll get
I swear
it.
to God. So Sunflower said, I think Dan mentioned that in the episode is one of the times Kennedy would have been pumped full of his drug cocktail. For sure. The Bay of Pigs, when he said, I thought I could trust the military men, I should have known better. Guaranteed he was hot full of drugs. I mean, that's because that was early in his presidency.
But it wasn't like all necessarily.
So
like
let's
Dr.
talk about
Feelgood
Kaczynski
drugs.
really
I mean,
quick.
a lot of it
Let's
was
talk
stuff
about
that
Ted
you really needed
Kaczynski.
to take.
Okay,
You should try to
let's
repeat
talk
that
about
so the
Ted
microphone picks
Kaczynski.
it up.
Okay, so Ted Kaczynski was a genius. He was born a genius, and he was advanced through school, and he went to Harvard at an early age. He went there when he was 16 years old. Advanced placement, okay? So he was put into a program run by a professor that was peripherally connected to MK Ultra, which is a real deal.
Yep.
So in that program, so Joe Rogan likes to say that he was pumped full of LSD and psyched out. Here's what actually happened, as far as I know. In that program, you were asked to list all your ideologies, and then you would be severely challenged on them. What do you believe this for? What? That's bullshit. Like I don't fucking believe that. So it was kind of a way for America to break down the ideology of another culture. Okay. So in that program, his mind broke. Okay. And I believe
Talking
that
about the
did happen.
Unabomber?
That's
Sorry, I
one
was.
point.
He's talking about Unabomber.
Yeah, Unabomber.
Yeah,
story.
Jack, I see
So he
that
got
comment.
out
100% right. Yeah.
So he got out of there with that experience, and then he also was a unique loner, genius, geek who never would been with girls, and he went out and he did eventually commit all the crimes for which he is now infamous.
Did you hear?
But I don't know of any instance where he was fed LSD on.
Oh
record,
no! That's definitely something that they talk about. That he was part of the
Who talks
experiments. I heard it on Rogan. But
that's
they
what I'm
say
talking about, man.
His brother mentioned this in a book. Like, so
there was different programs of MK Ultra. Like
but this wasn't MK Ultra. This was actually not the CIA. This was Timothy Leary when he was doing his experiments. Was just dosing people to find out what would happen.
So,
and
you're saying that Timothy Leary dosed Ted Kaczynski?
That's what they
LSD?
say. That's what his brother said in the book.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I
did not know that.
You got to look it up. I would have to double check.
Wow.
But yeah, and I think Jack just said Leary was provided LSD by the U.S. government. I think that's correct as well. But yeah, if we check that out, Matt, that is at least what I heard. Again, I haven't looked into the fact checking
So
of
what
that.
we can't agree
But-
on is that Ted Kaczynski's mind was broken
Do you
by
know what else
MK
his
Ultra.
brother said, though, about Ted Kaczynski? Is when he was a baby, he had this weird disorder, and they put him in a room and wouldn't, some kind of weird disease or something, and they wouldn't let anybody pick him up or hold him
Yeah,
for
that's
like-
true. Yeah, his
for
mom,
like a certain
his
amount
mother
of time.
talked about that.
Like,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
this poor
And
kid
she
literally got no physical
Yeah.
bonding at like the most important time.
His mother cited that specifically and seriously as a cause of what were his further
Right. But yeah, look it up.
psychological
Apparently he
symptoms
took
that we know the best.
Timothy Leary was dosing. Right. So, and you're right. Jack said psychedelics would definitely magnify that trauma. Maybe if they were done correctly with like the right kind of therapy, maybe it would get rid of that trauma. Like that's what they've looked into, using psychedelics to treat PTSD and things like that. It's very specific. Like it's a certain. So Andrew Huberman talks about this on his podcast. Like the clinical trials for this are very specific. So it's not just giving psychedelics and saying, okay, this is going to cure your PTSD, right? It's cover the eyes, because if you have your eyes open, the trip's not going to be the same. It's not going to help you deal with your trauma. You have to have the right kind of music playing. They do this in a clinical setting. The right kind of music playing, blindfolded, all these certain factors. This is what they're testing anyway. But if you just give LSD to a bunch of people with already mental disorders, it might not help.
Yeah.
Right? There's no guarantee that it will help.
Well, they might go nuts.
Okay. This has been awesome conversation. Before we leave, I want to go with favorite, or who do you think in history that Dan doesn't talk about in the podcast might have been on something that was drugs or alcohol that was affecting their decision making? That is a fun one to think about, or alternate history scenario. Feel free to jump in, Jack or Sunflower, if you have an episode, a person that you want to talk about with that.
Jesus,
Dude,
Jesus,
what if Jesus was on mushrooms? Again, we already kind of jumped into that.
DMT,
DMT.
the
Those are
voice in
things
the bush, the burning bush.
Well, yeah, but that was pre-Jesus. That was Noah, right? Wasn't the burning bush
Yeah,
Moses?
no, right.
Yeah.
But DMT was a thing back then. Yeah.
Well,
it's a natural.
again,
hallucinogen,
like-
so it's like a,
If you're in the desert for 40 days with no food, you're gonna hallucinate some shit.
Genghis.
And then Jack said, "I was gonna say Jesus, LOL."
I say
That's a great answer.
Genghis Khan because they even said they would sit in the tents and they
Oh, yeah.
burn a bunch of pot. I mean,
Drink a bunch.
they drink a bunch and fermented mare's milk, and then
Right.
they said they would like wash themselves or bathe in like the marijuana basically,
Mm.
or whatever the hell they were burning.
That was their hemp or whatever. That was their baths.
Yeah,
It was just like a steam hemp bath.
so they're getting high as shit.
Yeah.
He said
Is
they
it
loved
actually cleaning them?
No, but he said they loved
I
it.
feel like we should try this. I have a song.
Yeah, so we'll take like an ounce.
For science.
Yeah, we'll take
For science, Scott.
we'll take an ounce. And
We
throw
need
it
to
in
clam bake my sauna for science. Listen, I don't smoke weed, but I feel like we need to know what these guys were getting out of that.
Hell.
I mean, you as an audience, you tell me, is that something we should try for science? I'm all about experiments and finding out if these things were accurate.
And throughout history,
Well-
something that's interesting is cocaine.
Right.
Was very, very prevalent,
Shit.
and meth was prevalent during the World War II and the Nazis. Because how are you going to? Even the U.S. We gave our troops meth or something similar,
Speed.
and they put it. I forgot they put it in like chocolate bars or something like that. Anyway, so they'd eat their chocolate
did. Yes,
bars
they
and they'd
did.
give them. Go ahead. What?
He said they did put it in chocolate bars. I did not know that.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you'd get all hopped up and shit. Yeah, you can go March 20th.
So if you are in Europe and you're finding some old U.S. chocolate,
you might want to
eat
try
it at your own risk. Eat it at your own risk. Maybe don't have anything planned.
No.
And then Jack said, still do for the pilots.
Yeah.
Because we have learned that certain chemicals will sharpen your focus. Like, look at Adderall.
Yeah.
You talk to people.
Well, that's meth.
It's performance-enhancing drugs.
It's not.
College students take Adderall to do better on tests. When I went to college, you didn't do drugs to do better in school.
No, you did.
You did drugs because they were fun.
Yeah.
These fucking nerds.
Yeah. Well, what they do is if they have a test the day before, they'll take Adderall and they'll pretty much read everything they need to know for the test or whatever.
Yeah, but I used to do that without Adderall.
Yeah, well, they do it with Adderall.
Like studying ahead of time. That's silly.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So what I'm taking away from this episode is that the influence of substances on politics is great, and
But answer the question
notorious.
first before you recap this shit, Matt.
But I think the answer to that question is a little more ambiguous, as is usually history.
Mm-hmm.
In that the influence of substances on history, which affect the trends and forces of society, which affect politics, which influence politics, is just as great, if not greater, and probably much greater than the individuals who have shaped history. So we have.
You know what this tells me?
The hippie
Matt has not drank enough.
we have psychedelic tribalism. We have hippie counterculture. We have meth in the military. We have psychedelics in religion. Like, all these things affect culture and politics, and I think they are more important than the political figures who get injected with a cocktail of steroids and vitamins
sometimes
prior to going on
prior
to going on stage. You're right. Sometimes it's cocktails.
But sometimes it's Winston Churchill
giving
that speech
and children buds, and that's something we didn't address, and really quickly follow up on that. But I think the influence is society, and I think the one thing that was left out of Dan's, and actually he did touch on this. He did touch on this a bit. He said that Americans used to wake up to a breakfast of warm ale.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We're also something, unless we are.
But I think what Dan forgets about that is if that's what you're drinking all the time, you're not actually feeling a buzz from that.
Yeah, but the Germans in Bavaria still drink 2 beers.
The Germans.
The Germans in Bavaria.
What I'm saying is that there are specific.
For breakfast.
There are specific. I guess I can sum up like this. My answer to your question, George, is not a person, but society itself. Society itself throughout the ages has been under the influence.
So that was the one thing I had to take away from what Dan talked about that he didn't really get into, and I think maybe Dan hasn't spent a lot of time around some real boozers. Like, maybe he actually went to college to learn. Like, I went to a directional school in Michigan. Like,
when they were talking,
it was a party school. You build a tolerance. Like Churchill. Sometimes he was probably hammered, but most days, if you wake up every morning and you're drinking, you're just fighting that so you don't get a hangover.
Yeah, it's just the hair of the dog.
He's literally drinking all day so that he doesn't feel the hangover. So he might not even be that drunk.
Yeah.
Well, it's like he's like, Americans drink warm ale for breakfast. You're like, well, yeah, because well water sucks.
Fair enough.
Right? And a good way to make water safe to drink was to ferment it. Right?
Or boil it.
Boil it, but then you got to have a fire.
Yeah.
Right. You got to do all that crap. So if you turn it into cider or wine, then it's safer to drink. That was part of the reason they did all that.
Same thing in the Middle East.
You build a tolerance. And so drinking ale for breakfast, if you do that every day, is probably not catching you a buzz.
Yeah. Well,
probably not.
Dan brings up one of the things that Churchill's aide said. He said, "Well, Churchill must have been quite tight when he
but it was enough where he noticed those, right?
Sure.
If it was always like that,
yeah.
Right. So I'm sure there was days where he was annihilated. All right, I don't doubt that.
But he also didn't like to get out of bed. He liked to lay down a lot.
Listen. If you could run your own company from bed, you might.
Well, hey,
you might.
What was his famous saying? Never stand when you can sit, and never sit when you can lie down.
Ooh, Jack just dropped. Yes, that's the best line ever. Never stand when you can sit, and never sit when you can lie down.
Yep.
All right, but Jack just dropped a great one. How about the pharaohs that were mummified with drugs? Did a whole civilization get enslaved to make giant sphinxes because the dude was high? Holy shit, Jack.
That's a possibility.
I fucking love that.
It wouldn't be one dude. It'd be many dudes high.
Oh, no. The pharaoh.
Yeah, but there was more than one.
Yeah, but I mean, like
They didn't.
he's like,
That's a good.
I need
That's
a
a
big
good
pyramid.
example.
what if he's all stoned? He's like,
Monuments were built in stone that
what if
last
he's
to
like
this
so
day.
stoned? He's like,
Make it bigger.
To
it's got to be bigger.
that were
No, it's
built
got to be bigger than that guy's. Come on, let's go.
by slaves.
Dude, this is going to take 20 years. Whoa,
To
just
commemorate.
fucking make it bigger.
I'm the pharaoh. I don't care.
Just do it. Sure, we could like,
Wow.
get some
that
gold.
that
Like,
really
just
speaks
fucking
in
build this big
time.
damn stone building. I love it.
So
Jack.
we had
That
it.
was awesome.
I'm a guy. I'm a guy, and I'm born to these parents, and
Bigot.
they're my
You're a
mother
guy
and
right
father,
now.
but they happen to rule the kingdom. And so because of that, I get to do whatever I want. When they die, I'm king. So I want my name to like last through the ages. But I'm, so I hire this workforce. Actually, I don't hire them. They're all slaves.
Well, we
and
don't
they
know.
They don't actually get.
Maybe they were all
They-
slaves. Maybe they were volunteers.
The people who built the Egyptian pyramids, like, were getting paid in beer and free rent and all this kind of stuff. Like,
Maybe
they're
maybe-
free rent is bad in this context, but historical analysis nowadays is that the people who built the Egyptian pyramids were not slaves. They were like
Paid
migrant
artisans.
workers, Okay,
I don't buy
right?
that. I believe
Okay,
some
okay.
of them were.
So-
I believe
so-
some of
so
them were.
to-
I believe
to-
that's one of those modern things that we like to read into history, and I don't necessarily think that we could have a fucking clue. That's what I think. I think that's a
there's-
guess.
So the way they lived, it comes down to the interior of their houses. And Tom
Right,
Holland,
but that could have
I
been
think
just the
Tom
people
commented on this
designing that
recently.
shit. What about the people who were hauling the
No,
rocks?
not the way they were built, the items in their house. So I'm just trying to really wrap it up with like, that's a great conversation. But with Jack's last statement as to your question, George, like, who is the most famous historical, the most influential historical
No, that's
figure
fucking
you
great.
think, or we haven't talked about that affected history because they were in the influence of drugs. Jack's pharaohs, like, yeah, like
Right.
pharaohs were high as fuck all the time, and they literally built the world. Like,
No, it's awesome.
They had art. So I was providing this example where, like, I'm a pharaoh. I want to simply carve my face into stone so that it will be remembered through the ages and last
You say
well
that like
beyond
it's a
any
bad thing,
generation, which I might conceive.
Yeah.
And to do this, I can simply, with a swipe of my hand, summon an army of workers who may or may not be getting paid. And that is my whim upon this morning because I've just smoked some nice Indian Kush.
Right.
We have a nice trade deal worked out with India. We trade
Sure.
copper for their
Yeah,
tin,
they're basically
and
on
their
heroin.
cedars come. So that's where they get their weed from. They get the weed from like Indian shit.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? So
Probably
that was the
opium.
whim. That
Yeah.
was the whim of a pharaoh one morning, and now his face appears in stone for us to look upon.
Yeah, he
4,000
got
years
high and
later.
like put me on a
Because
lion's body.
he was stoned.
Yeah, put me on a
because he was
lion's
stoned.
body and make it 50
And had-
feet tall.
Exactly.
No, bigger.
I'll sum up Jack's statement in 2 sentences. Because he was stoned and because he had slaves, an army of slaves.
Right.
Like,
And
that
so
is very acute. That is very acute. Hey,
Sunflower.
an influential political figure. We
Mhm.
forget about the people who lived 4,000 years before us and created the world we now live,
right.
and whose monuments we look upon with awe because we cannot conceive how to construct them, even in our modern age with our modern
You wanna
tools and equipment. And this guy is referencing that guy, right? He
Right.
built the pyramids on weed.
Right. Exactly. That's a great point, Jack and Matt. Go ahead, Scott.
Matt's over here throwing shade on Mount Rushmore, just so you know.
What the fuck's wrong with Mount Rushmore?
Mount Rushmore was
I'm
constructed
drunk
with
enough
dynamite.
right now that I'm really gonna get mad.
Yeah.
If Matt's throwing shade at Mount Rushmore. All right, like my people, I'm part Native American. And I'm still all for that shit. Like, hey, let's add some more people.
You want to put some faces on a mountain? There you go.
All right,
buddy.
and then Sunflower said, you don't need to be high to want to leave a giant legacy. What about the Romans and their ancestor trophy rooms? Sunflower, that's a great point.
And that's
And
what
also goes right with Mount Rushmore.
that's why I thought about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great point, both of you. Wanting to be remembered is an innate trait in humans, especially male humans, and especially super ambitious male humans. Think about this, right? Women make people. So that's a great way to leave a legacy.
They
You're
do.
making a person.
And I was talking about this recently. I was saying how much of an I was watching Dune Part 2, and it's like
It's kind
set
of
in
like
a
that movie,
universe
by the way.
where the Bennett like ostensibly is a male controlled feudal society, but in reality the women control all the politics and the breeding lines and stuff behind the scenes. So they really control the politics, right?
Which I've been
So,
saying on the podcast, and I never even watched
and it
Dune.
brought me directly back to the Vikings, as you said, George, in an earlier chat in this episode, where you're referring to the women's influence in Viking society, and that's something I brought up recently in my when I was watching Dune, because it was really a world run by men but controlled by women. So they had influence over their religious conversion and their bloodline, which not only which accounts for the lineage of kings, right?
Dude.
And they can go off with some other man and like,
That's
guess
why
what, dude?
the idea of the patriarchy
at the end
is
of their lives,
bullshit.
their deathbed confession, right, of the queen would be like,
Mhm.
your son is the son by this man. Boom. And
Matt-
that conquers kingdoms.
Matt,
with a woman's control.
that's
over
why I
bloodlines.
said
So-
this on a previous episode. The idea of a patriarchy is bullshit. Because women make all the
it
people.
really is. We have to
They
realize
make all the
what's really
people,
going on.
and
Yeah.
they raise
They make
all
all
the
the people.
fucking people. So
Yes!
if you
When we're
are
away
growing
fighting
the next
wars,
generation,
they
if
teach
you're
our
raising the
children
next
how to
generation,
perceive us.
who's in charge?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
That's
But
it.
Jack just dropped something on here that I can't believe it did not occur to me. And I love it because it really brings in the idea of history under the influence, but on society levels, like what Matt was saying. He said, we haven't even talked about Romans lining their water pipes with lead.
Yeah.
Or putting lead in gasoline.
Yeah.
And lowering the IQ in cities by several points. Whereas we're still rebounding from that.
Sure.
If you live in New York, there's certain vegetables you should not grow in your garden because there's too much lead in the soil. And those vegetables pick up lead, so you got to grow vegetables that don't. Still to this day, from all the gas, all the leaded gas. What if we're still suffering the consequences of a bunch of fucking boomers who got leaded up and made dumber?
Well, I mean,
seriously, Scott, that's something that you think about.
No, but you think about like the rise in like autism, or the rise in Down syndrome, or the rise in birth defects. Okay,
right?
Genetic mutations. I mean, that's where that's where most likely that stems from, or the rise in cancer rate. Well, maybe because of the 4,000 fucking nuclear bombs we set off,
right?
In the last 60, 70 years. Well, we haven't done it in like 20 years.
No, that's a great point too. It's not just the. There's all kinds of reasons.
Do you know? I have to drop this. And steel made in pre-1945. Did I tell you this one?
Okay, yeah, you did, and that was awesome.
Steel made.
You dropped that on the episode with Dan Carlin.
Ah, that's right.
If you haven't listened, we talked to Dan Carlin. Scott dropped this point. Dan didn't even know about this.
Yep.
Dan was like, "Holy shit, that's fascinating."
So,
well, he might not have said shit.
But
I might have been adding a little bit to it there, but he thought it was an interesting point.
Steel made pre-1945 is stronger, or forged pre-1945 is stronger and better because of the ionization that occurred in the atmosphere after we started lighting off atomic bombs.
So thanks, Oppenheimer.
You're welcome. I'm just saying.
But
there's a huge.
There's a lot more people to make steel because of those nuclear bombs.
That may or may not be true.
No, it's definitely true, and it will be true right up until the time we have another nuclear war.
Well, then
I said this, and that's probably the best thing I've ever said on anything ever, is that nuclear weapons save more lives than anything in human history, and that will be true.
That's debatable.
Right up until the time where it's no longer true because it destroyed more lives than anything in human history.
Wait a minute.
Imagine a war with Russia if we didn't have a nuclear. No, we've already talked about this.
Anyway,
no, we're not getting into that.
It's debatable.
Today. It's not debatable.
I can debate
100% right.
Because what if the rise in cancer rates? What if the rise in cancer rates due to the no?
But we've conquered cancer. We're figuring that shit out.
We haven't conquered.
No, but we're figuring it out.
There's
not well
for now. Wait till they fucking just hack our DNA and we can just fix that shit.
I met a person today for the first time. One of my
Cool.
customers.
I'm happy you
Michelle-
met somebody for the first time. Man.
and
Lead is a
I
hell of
walked
a
into
drug.
his house and I was fighting his bugs, and he said, "Oh yeah, I haven't. We had to move his washer and dryer out
Hmm.
to get to where I was going for my work, and he said, I'm sorry I haven't been able to take care of this. But he's a healthy, vital person. Like I would have had. I met him as is a nice house. Like this dude's like
Yeah, he's
he
loaded.
does not have to worry about money, and like he's
Or if he
retired
lives
with his
house
wife,
four.
who's named Donnie. Like you know what I mean? Like he has got
Did
his
you
shit
say
going.
that
I
was
see
named
plenty.
Donnie?
Of
What's up, Don?
Wait. Pause.
Yeah, right.
Matt,
So
pause.
yeah,
Pause.
yeah,
Donnie is
yeah.
not a rich guy name.
Yes, it is.
Have you not
No,
seen the Big
okay.
Donald
Lebowski?
Trump.
Have you seen
I'm
the Big
already
Lebowski?
You
naming
want to call
people.
Donnie Donald
My
Trump?
point
You're
my
on the
point
line,
was
Donnie.
that I walked into this guy's house and I thought this is some old retired hippie.
That's
Okay,
on point.
I
He's not
meet
listening to us at all.
I meet plenty of people like that up here where I live who own land and like have their act together. Like they are never gonna ever have to worry about paying for the rent. They either have their money secured or they own a farm on their property where other people work for them and produce their own personal income. Like that's how it works up here. So this guy was like, "Hey, I'd help you." Like he was helping me move the washer and dryer around, so I get to.
Well,
his
he's not a
bugs.
bad guy.
And he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I'm sorry." No, he was like, I didn't meet him as anyone who would have had any weakness. He was very strong. This is my point to Scott's point.
Oh, I got
And
I see.
he had so there was like some beetles behind his washer. There was like carpet beetles coming out of the insulation duct on his dryer. So I handled that for him. I'm gonna be back. But he said, I haven't been able to do much around here. I have this blood cancer. And I was
Right.
like, fuck, that means leukemia.
Yep.
And he's like, it's okay, I'm handling it. You know what I mean? But it's
Right.
like I just have it. And I was like, dude,
No,
I
that's a
get
real
it. You know what I mean?
No,
So
you're right.
he is
There's
a very
there's a
act-
real
he's a
thing
very
with why
active-
there's so
he's
many
a very
crazy
act-
chemicals.
Speaking to the point about curing cancer, we're not doing that. This guy has fucking leukemia, and he's like active about the house. Like in my day, that was a fucking death sentence where you were
Right.
considered to be
Sure.
someone who really needed to be
Listen,
taken care of
well,
in society.
Science is great
There's a
at making
movie- there was a
problems and
movie
then
made
helping
about
us solve
that,
them.
the Nutcracker
Well,
movie.
Yep,
leukemia is still. I
Yeah,
think,
do you remember
that's
that?
it's still
bad,
pretty bad.
but people can
Yeah.
survive.
So
Sure.
it's not curing, it's managing cancer.
But
right?
the
You know what I
thing
mean?
is,
Like, there's things
right-
we can manage.
But Matt, real quick, the thing is, technology and modern culture and society and technology causes a lot of these problems,
Sure.
and it also finds a solution for these lot of problems.
Some of them.
Because in life, there is always trade-offs. Would you rather live in a fucking terrible city with no sewage and a certain percentage of the people just die of dysentery? No, of course you wouldn't. Would you rather not be able to drive?
But you wouldn't know the difference.
You would. Life was more miserable. It
But
just was.
but you
And
didn't
knew
know the
that. I
difference.
think they knew that.
They
I don't think they didn't know they weren't miserable.
That was just
Let me
the
ask you a
way it
question.
was. That was just.
Would
the way
you
it was.
trade cancer for the ability to drive? Like, if you could wipe out cancer in the world, and the only drawback was nobody could have cars, would you do it?
Probably.
No fucking way.
Probably.
My
There's
dad
other
died
ways.
of
There's
cancer.
other. There's other
You want to ride
ways.
some fucking horses?
Yeah. Why not?
Because that sucked.
There's
Look
other
at how
ways.
much you drive for your job.
We would find another way.
We
to
did
get-
it, and
there-
life wasn't as cool.
No. We would find another way.
You didn't
to
get rid of a drop top?
We would get around. We'd find another way to get around.
No.
If it wasn't an automobile, it'd be something else.
It'd be less cool.
We'd fucking genetically have Pegasuses.
No.
We'd
Okay.
be flying around. And
Let's jump to Sunflower had an off-the-wall question, which is kind of what we do here.
Yep.
So
It
Sunflower
got-
thinking.
It's gotten weird.
So it says the Roman army
That's-
made whole entire walled camps when they stopped for the night.
Yep.
I assume then that they took it apart to carry the camp with them to the
No.
next place, or are there a whole bunch of old Roman army camps all over the old empire? I think it is the
They
latter.
burned them.
They burned them, Matt?
Yeah, and then they built new
So,
ones. The next
I
Because
thought
they were
about this
cutting
a
down
lot. I've thought
trees
about-
to build
yeah.
that stuff.
I've thought about this a lot and how much wood
Nice.
is available in the area. So we actually
Tons.
do to get accounts of like people going out and skirmishing and the battles between Caesar and Vercingetorix, where you had the double siege. And that is the question right there. Then I think about, where did they get all this from? Like, you know what I mean?
Because
it was all fucking wilderness.
it was virgin forest.
They were
still.
fighting in a forest, right?
It was a
And
lot of
so
virgin
that is
forest.
that tells me that the immediate response of the army would be go out and forage for this lumber, but they must have had like individual bits and pieces. So what you have to imagine, Roman army carrying on as it moves along. That couldn't have been any kind of
Matt,
opposed.
pause for a second. Matt, pause for a second.
So what I'm saying
No,
is
I'm going to let you finish, Matt.
Yeah, you
pause
have
for
to
a
be
second.
mobile. I don't think they carried siege weapons with them, but siege weapons are like ready. They're like IKEA products where you have a manual for them and stuff.
Right. So Jack and Matt, what I think was good here is Jack said some core elements of their camp infrastructure was carried. The rest was cut down from timber along the way or nearby camps. Pioneers as a soldier class invented by the Romans is a crazy thing to learn about too. That does sound awesome.
There's this great,
ahead, Matt.
Hell yeah.
There's
this great book called Caesar's Legion. It's about the 10th Roman Legion.
That sounds
raised by Caesar in Spain. It's his own personal legion. It's the one he trusted, that he had the most confidence in, and he would always place in his most important battles. So it's a regimental history of a Roman legion, and I believe it was the first one ever written. There might have been a second one after that, but this guy wrote the first regimental history of a Roman legion. This is their history throughout all the
Matt,
campaign.
can you throw that in the Discord in the Talking Hardcore chat so we can remember that when we're a little more sober? Because I want to read that. That sounds really good. I'm not drunk or anything, but I got a nice buzz, and I don't feel like making a note. George is drunk. No, you would know if I was drunk. I'd be way funnier.
Buzzed podcasting is drunk podcasting.
So my point
that's
was
a shirt. That's a shirt. Holy shit, that's a shirt. Did you hear what he said, Matt?
No, what did he say?
He said,
we're on tape.
He said, buzzed podcasting is drunk podcasting. Because of all the billboards, I don't know if they're like that around you, but around here, it's buzz driving is drunk driving.
There you go.
Oh, I think that's funny.
That's tough. So the point of that story was to Jack's very specific word of pioneer. So in the Roman legion, so he said, okay, so pioneers are a soldier class invented by the Roman. Okay, so everybody who was conscripted to or volunteered for the Roman legions, like had a background bringing with him. Like, what do? I make shoes. Okay, you're gonna fucking make shoes for the army, but guess what? You were also going to go out every day from fucking 6 to 12, fucking in the morning to the evening, and learn how to fight and kill people. And then you're gonna make shoes for the fucking army because thank you for that skill that you're bringing to our military. So there were very specific people who like had their jobs. You were a carpenter, you could set up and tear down a fort or a piece of siege equipment. And so going out and foraging for wood would be a skill class required for the necessary infrastructure of their mobile military operation.
Right, exactly what I was thinking.
No, George.
Now we're going to have a little sword fight.
No, we're not.
On guard.
You want to fight with my sword?
Nobody wants to touch your sword.
Touche.
On guard. Oui.
No, this is stupid.
Okay.
All right, anyway.
It is dumb. Okay. That is awesome, Matt.
It is dumb. So,
check out the
you know
size
what my
of that
question?
sword.
You know what my question is, Matt? And this is for everybody. So, when the Romans broke down camp, who were the first people to go out with the soldiers?
Your mom.
You'd think it'd be the
Your
guy.
mom.
Hold on. You'd think it would be the guys cooking. Because what do you want when the rest of the soldiers start coming back after a long day's march? They're going to have to eat. So it would have to be the cooks.
Well,
and some of the legions.
A lot of times they're probably eating rations. They're probably eating bread that has been baked 3 days before, or 5 days before. No,
so they were rationed. They were rationed grain and flour with which to cook bread. But where did that?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is,
that came from your mom.
Which was the yeah, you're right, Scott. Like the cooks would
Would be the-
probably go out in advance, right? So we have to imagine these job classes. Like, I'm really happy that Jack brought up, because we were talking about the Roman Special Forces book that's coming out, and like we're identifying aspects of the Roman military that might have different missions according to their environments. But it's really interesting to, at the very least, extract by context the kind of jobs you're talking about, Scott, where cooks would go in advance with the military and provide them with resources by which to set up forward operating bases and things. So, hey, that's like a whole story there. Like, I'm a freaking cook going to Legions.
Right.
Yeah. You know,
Really
I'm
boring story.
taught me how to cook
No.
when I was a kid because we didn't have a daughter. But like, I'm in the army
Ooh, sexist
now,
bastard.
but I'm also a cook. So I'm
Dudes
a
cook all the
fighting.
time.
I would assume
It's the main principle that of the Marine Corps. Every Marine is a rifleman. Every Marine is a rifleman first, but then you also know how to do something else that's helpful to the immediate community.
So Jack said,
and the,
assault pioneers
structure as a
clear
whole.
the path and supervise construction of defenses. Then
That's
fast
it
forward to
right there.
settling of
Assault
America.
pioneers.
Pioneers.
Oh my God.
Yep, Jack's
Assault
on fire. All right,
pioneers.
fuck you,
That's
Jack.
such a
You
great.
should have
I'm
just
never
joined
gonna
the
forget
stage.
that as
You
long
gotta
as I
like that
live.
word.
Assault pioneers.
Maybe we can talk to our
Can I say that
sponsor,
again?
Ace Industrial
I love
Solutions,
that
and see if they can
series of
send
words.
Jack a effing mic.
Assault pioneers.
I'd have to
That
talk
is
to Ace.
brilliant, man.
Yeah, Ace might have that.
Oh my! I'm sorry we're talking over each other, but that is
That's okay.
one of the
That's what
most
happens when you drink.
descriptive series
Okay.
of words I've
Well,
ever heard
all
in my
right,
life,
Matt.
and it's only two.
We're gonna wrap this up, but I got to drop a couple of things. In the description, there's going to be a link here.
Assault
for-
pioneers.
Well, yeah, that too, right? Assault. That's
Assault
a T-shirt.
pioneers.
That's a T-shirt. There's going to be a
That's
link.
dope.
Yeah, it would be dope, right? All right, but there's going to be a link to a book that Scott wrote. That's a children's story.
What?
It's under a pseudonym.
I didn't write it.
No, it's under a pseudonym. It's okay. Nobody's going to listen to this.
Oh, okay.
Like the 100 and some people that listen to this aren't going to blow up your spot. And if you get canceled, then you'll get more sales. So Scott wrote a children's book.
I'm operating on the assumption that my career is safe in the hands of you fine gentlemen.
Yeah, that was
so
stupid.
be gentle with the editing.
That was foolish. But okay, so Scott here wrote a children's book, and it is going to be available at the link in the description. It's on Kindle, where he's working on getting it published in hardbound. It's a great story. He told the story to his daughter, made it up, told it to his daughter, and then told it to my girls when he was over here visiting. And I was like, you need to write that up. It's a good book. It's great. The kids love it. The artwork was done by his Russian mother-in-law, who is like an actual legit artist who painted these pictures from scratch by hand.
Yep.
So you can get it on Kindle right now and read it on your tablet, and it's great. It's only like $6. There'll be a link in the description. But we're going to be getting hardbound copies
Sooner or later.
So we'll be able to have a link for signed copies of that as well. But if you have children or nieces or nephews, this book it's perfect. It's a Halloween story, and it's really fun. I want to say thanks to Matt, as usual, for carrying the heavy weight when we have him on the podcast.
Yep.
Being over prepared
Cheers,
is perfect, because we might be a little underprepared.
Nah.
I spent a lot of time thinking about like what drinks we needed.
My
for this
liver was
episode.
prepared.
Yes, exactly. But Matt like takes notes.
Yeah.
and talks about like
And the Sunflower and Simple Jack, or I'm sorry, Jack Simple. All right.
Yeah. Jack
For
Simple.
please attending and joining our audience today, and then definitely
Awesome.
contributing.
No, we appreciate it.
Thanks for hanging out, you guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun when there's actual audiences that
Interact.
text and interact. Like we did the first book club and it was just us, and that was still fun. But we were also like, are we just jerking off here? Like it is a thing. Like having people there that are interacting on these live events make it so that it feels like we're not just doing this into the void. So thank you very much.
The audience made the conversation.
Oh,
this
today
evening. Like, it was
especially.
really
Yeah.
interesting. The twists and turns it took.
Right.
based on this.
Yeah,
that was
we
a
gotta
great. This
get
is
them
great
some
hanging out.
microphones though. They gotta jump on there with the questions. It would be a lot more fun if we could hear them say their points. instead of
Everybody's
just
got
typing.
their own way of like
Sure,
communicating. And,
absolutely.
Like, I've never written to myself, honestly, but I was forced into this
But you have the
podcast
voice.
with you guys.
You're
Do
often
not say
compared.
of an angel.
You're often compared to the songbird of our generation. Matt.
Trust me, if I could text
Close
Dan,
to
I'd be
home.
doing much better.
Stop it, George.
This has been a
All
lot
right.
of fun.
All right,
Yeah.
guys, this
So
has been a
anyway,
blast.
another
Check out
shout
the
out
link for the merchandise.
and to Ace Industrial Solutions for
Dude,
sponsoring
Ace
us.
is
Mhm.
dope. If you
Buy
get a
some
chance,
floors. Everybody buy.
if you need solutions for
floors.
your industry, talk to Ace.
Industrial space.
Hey,
Ace
what do you
does
guys got
industrial
coming?
solutions.
What do you guys got coming up?
Okay, that's a great question. See, Matt, heavy lifting. What'd I say? He does the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
He even cues up the fucking promos.
We don't even know what we got coming.
I don't know.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know,
so we
guys.
need.
Let's
Okay,
get this
coming
done
up
together.
soon, and we've been teasing this for a while. The rest is history. Aztec episode.
No,
we have to do the
we have
Aztec
to
episode.
finish Inde.
Yeah, but no, the book clubs. I'm fine taking our time. But we're going to do a long podcast talking about the rest is history, and also the rest is history Aztec episode. If you have not listened to those, holy shit, is it worth it? And we're going to do an episode talking about that. It is a fascinating account of Cortez and Montezuma and all of that history. And it takes a perspective that you probably weren't taught in school.
No, I have to read it.
No, you don't read it. You just listen to it. It's
Okay,
it's
but I have to
5
listen.
40-minute episodes.
I'm gonna have to listen to it.
It's really good.
We know.
So this is what I was asking about, George, because I'm interested in your series about South, Native American culture has been going on first.
Yeah, we've been working on that a while.
The coverage by of the Apache Chronicles, as recommended by Dan, but then in your further interview, which was fantastic, and I'm happy to have been a part of. But the further delving into that particular era of American history is really cool to me. I
was just going to mention this.
To be proud of in the course of my immediate research from that, and like immediately past that is the Aztec series that you guys were talking about.
Right,
So
and then
forward.
Dan had an actual historian asking him questions at the live show in Salt Lake City. His field of study is Native American.
Stephen Wright?
Yep. No, Wagner. I had that
Wagner.
wrong. It's funny because that episode we called him Stephen Wright. It was Stephen Wagner. And that's funny because I typed it in my notepad right after he said it, and I still got it wrong. So either Dan got it wrong
Our
or I
apologies.
got it wrong.
Our apologies to Dr.
But
Stephen
I've
Wagner.
contacted him. He's interested in coming on the podcast. And his field of study, Matt, is Native American culture or Native American history. So I thought that would be very appropriate to have on at this time. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about the Aztecs with you guys.
Oh, man, that's going to be a good one. Jack in Sunflower, thanks so much. You guys make this a lot more fun. And I love that we actually have a woman who listens and contributes. And listen, it's not just that her name is Sunflower, that we assume she's a woman. We heard her speak in person at the Dan Carlin live event. She asked a question, and I can confirm, in fact, that she is a woman. So there is not. And there's at least one that listened to us.
And it was an insightful question.
No, it's a great question. But I would just confirm that it is not all dudes.
Just fair. That's good.
Which is surprising.
Well, we were in Salt Lake.
Like, if I was a chick, I don't know.
Yeah, but we were in Salt Lake. I would say it was probably 60-40, men to women.
I think maybe 70-30. But I probably thought it would have been 90-10. And it was probably 70-30. That's pretty good. Like, Dan Carlin, he really does speak to all audiences, and I think that's great. The fact that people from all countries, all walks of life, all genders can really identify with what he says shows how skilled he is. And I tell you what, if you get a chance to see him live, it's not some magic he does by editing.
Well, and then
the guy's just a fucking sharp.
And just so you know, the second best would be our interview with Dan Carlin I would just say that's
No, he was
that'd be
great.
second best.
Yeah, the second best what?
As to seeing him live.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you can't see Dan Connor live, go listen to our interview
It was
because
awesome.
he talked about almost all the same stuff.
And you are absolutely correct, Sunflower. History is a human experience, no matter who you are.
Yes, but when I talk to my wife about history, her eyes glaze over and she falls asleep. So while I agree with you,
not
most
everybody
of the
finds
time I can't make it as interesting as Real Housewives.
that's fair.
But it should be.
Or The Bachelor,
It should be as interesting as that.
or Jersey Shore.
Yeah, well, that's a little dated.
Did she ever get into Jersey Shore?
Well, I mean, I even would watch that.
I wouldn't. Absolutely not.
Oh, I'm too good.
I didn't even watch. I didn't watch The Real
Drunk
World.
Wops.
I didn't watch.
I'm
I didn't watch The Real World. I didn't
watch a bunch
watch
of drunk Italians.
Jersey Shore. I didn't watch Real Housewives. I didn't watch any of that crap. Anyway,
Okay, Jack
Maybe
said
I'm
that
just
I
weird
get stuck shopping with my partner when I go to any kind of show. She wants to come along, but I think it's because she feels guilty of all the things she drags me to. Maybe that's what was going on, Jack, because most of the women there weren't single.
yeah, they were with some.
And then Sunflower said, or maybe I'm just weird because all those shows you listed suck. I agree, Sunflower, they do suck. But my wife likes them. And the funny thing is, I try to explain to her in human history, those type of relationships have actually happened,
Well,
right? Like you look at
sure.
look at Alexander's mom.
Snooki wants smush smush.
Well, look at Alexander's mom, right? Like that's more crazy than any reality show.
No.
Yeah, dude.
No.
She slept in a bed with snakes, killed her husband, and made her son the fucking emperor of the world.
Yeah. Fair enough.
That's pretty
That's
crazy.
one story.
That's pretty
That's a
crazy.
pretty good
Yeah,
story.
that's one story.
But like pretty nuts.
I mean, I think.
all right, but
I think
this is the middle of the wrap up that I already started wrapping up 10
20 minutes ago. 20
So,
minutes
guys, thanks again, Sunflower, Jack.
Everybody.
You guys are great. Everybody listening at home, Scott and I are going to we're going to want to say thank you. We're in the top 25% of all podcasts just because you people think it's fun to listen to us.
Ramble.
And we appreciate anybody who listens. And if you want to support the podcast, check out the links in the description. Ace Industrial Solutions. You guys should have a chance to meet Ace. He's great.
And merch is coming up. We're going to have some merch.
Merch is coming up.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Good night, Jack.